So much because, well, when I get bored, I just feel like playing video games. Well, it's like you're in your own fun little world where you can do anything you want. I'm just having fun. It's awesome. I just think they're really fun. I just really love them. Yeah, it's awesome. You wish that we could play more.
Get her attention, I'll have to raise my voice, because when I talk to her, if I'm trying to ask her a question, she doesn't answer me. She's oblivious to what I've said, so I know it really takes over her.
Our biggest concerns when he's playing his video games are that it overtakes everything else. He cannot pay attention to when he's called for dinner, or it's time to stop, or anything else. The world shuts out around him.
Video games are kind of like a simulation of something that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in real life. So, you look at any major video game that has sold incredibly well over the past few years, and they've always been in like a realm of like fantasy, science fiction, military shooters. And then when you look at people who are actually buying these games, like not all these people are actually in the military. Most of the time, these people will never even come in contact with any kind of situation like that.
I mean, I call it a sedative because it just totally knocks out the world around him.
I'd rather have her be outside and get in the physical activity as opposed to sitting and just, again, having her attention elsewhere.
The relationship between video games and obesity has been talked a lot about. At the moment, he's a very thin child. There's not really any concern with that. But after puberty, if he continues in a sedentary lifestyle, that's a concern that you have to have.
Yeah.
What he learns now is what he's going to carry over into his life as an adult.
Playing a video game now, I'm sitting in front of a monitor, with a keyboard or a mouse, or I have a controller in my hands and I'm actually playing. In the future, with things, with like kind of science fictional stuff like virtual reality, those inputs will be taken away. So you're not necessarily going to be having a controller in your hands or a controller, mouse and a keyboard. It's going to, games may function off brainwaves. Those removal of those outputs will make the game even more immersive. So it doesn't feel like you're playing a game. It feels like you're living an alternate reality of yourself.
That's a big argument for him, is that he can't stop where he is because he has to finish that or he loses.
Finish that level, finish that task, or else he's going to do the task again.
It's all about offering players like a reason to continue playing. So, if there's no reward for completing a certain level, someone's just going to beat that and then they're going to stop. High-level publishers like Electronic Arts or Activision, they want games to sell really well. So of course they want games that are very well made and that players are going to continue playing. They want to monetize that essentially. That's what they want. So the thing is, like, you can't just go out there and of course you're going to want to make a fun game. Sometimes you might say you don't want to make it addictive or too compelling that people aren't going to play it for a while. But the issue that comes up is like that's in the end, when that game goes to shelves, that's what the corporate side of it wants. They want games that people are going to keep coming back, buying and playing. Those games existed before the technology was there. Like for World of Warcraft, like the inspiration for that, like if you trace it back, is like it's people playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's the same game, but the accessibility is a lot higher. The issue was back in the day when you had Dungeons and Dragons, like, you would play for, maybe a super long time, but eventually everybody had to go home. And that change in technology, I think accessibility is the one thing I'd say is the biggest factor for addictive gaming.
He's playing a game, and you say, dinner time, let me just finish this one thing. Well, in my mind, he can come back to the game and start that one section over again, but no, he's got to get to that end where it'll save before he can come up to dinner.
Right.
So, okay, maybe the game people could make it easier to save the game at a certain point.
Microsoft has actually gone a step further in terms of, like, the family control, and have instituted what's called the family time. So if you go on and you have like maybe like 1 or 2 kids who are playing Xbox, and you want to be able to, you want to be able to control how much they play. When you can set a limit, whether it's a daily or a weekly limit for how long your kid can play per week. So they'll go on, you let them play whenever they want. But when that time limit comes up, the Xbox essentially shuts down. So they can't play any more games.
Marketing some of that to the parents might be good. That we can have some rules and controls over it.
What they want to institute as a balancing mechanic is kind of like a time limit thing, where I can go in and I can play as long as I want, but it comes to a certain point where the rewards aren't as enticing.